paranormal experiences don't really work to a timescale, and therefore we invite you to listen to a dark minisode. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our first minisode of Season 19. Firstly, thank you for all of the enthusiasm and feedback regarding our debut episode where we looked at Kelly's story. Now, I know on our Patreon that is an ongoing situation in terms of theories and conversation, and it's certainly one that seems to have captured everyone's imagination. Luckily, Kelly is one of our Patreons, so she's able to back and forth with people when they're putting forward their theories or ideas. And don't forget, if you want to join our Patreon, just head over to patreon.com/thedarkparanormal. And this is my first time to formally apologise for the fact there was no video to The Dark Realms for this week. But don't worry, new software has been installed and I've done several test runs. I'm pretty confident we're going to have one ready for our next Dark Realms. But we are not here for Dark Realms, we're here to discuss, and indeed listen to, this week's Dark Minisode. And this week's Dark Minisode was selected from one of our small team, however, they've not provided any details of the sender. So, to err on the side of caution, we're going to assume that this is an anonymous sender. And if it is you who is listening right now, please do let us know. But for now, we'll work on the basis that any names included have been changed to protect privacy. And so, for the first time in Season 19, let's delve into a dark minisode, A Lurking Evil. Hi there. I've been a long-time listener to the podcast, and I finally gathered the nerve to share my experience. Thank you for giving us a space to share our experiences. I've always been intrigued by the unknown ever since I was a child. My curiosity would create detailed daydreams that I had undiscovered powers to communicate with the earth, or elements unknown. I guess you could say I romanticized about being special. In some ways, I've always been able to read a person, mostly from non-verbal things. My gut would tell me everything I needed to know within the first 30 seconds of meeting anyone. My connection when meeting new people, even on the most platonic acquainted level, was either instantaneous or reserved. Over the years, it served me very well through life in guiding me as to whom to let into my circle, and who to maintain distance with. I think I believe in that natural connection more than I do one that's been developed through time and effort. Because of that natural sense of people. I've always secretly wished to develop that innate ability, or to have an experience that was truly unexplainable. Well, the year we moved into our rental home, I was given that very opportunity. I live in Washington State, in a small town located on a beautiful island in the northwest corner of the state. In the winter of 2017, my husband and I sold the home that we'd lived in for roughly 12 years, which had seen the growth of our family with the birth of our sons, as well as being our first family home. We decided it was time to expand. Our boys were getting bigger, and we were outgrowing that space. We dreamed of acreage in the country, somewhere we could build our new home. Property was scarce as we live on a small island in the San Juan area of Washington State. But one day, my husband got a call. His realtor friend had a buddy who owned 2 acres of the south end of the island, and had been on the fence about selling for the last few years. He'd finally made the decision to sell, so the realtor asked if we were interested in seeing it. Well, hell, yes. We planned to go and see it later that same week, and we made an offer on the spot. The offer was accepted, and we were ecstatic. Our dreams of a new home in the country were coming true. What this meant was getting our current house fixed up to put on the market as soon as possible, which is exactly what we did. Nights and weekends of packing and painting, literally, touching up every square inch of that house. It seemed to drag on for a few months, but we finally did it, and it looked beautiful. Our house sold the day it was listed for well over the asking price. We were elated, and so, next step, find a place to live in the interim. While trying to work that piece out, we went to the property and walked round our newly acquired land, and happened to see a large house right next door. I knew this house. It was owned by a local non-profit and had been previously used as a group home for troubled boys due to its large size, around 3,600 square feet, and its remote location. The idea sprung into my head. We could rent this now vacant home from that non-profit. It had been empty for years, and I'm sure they'd love to get some income from it. A couple of calls later, and the deal was done. We would be moving into our first rental home, and what luck! It was right next to our new property, so we could watch the home being built. We moved into that rental home in February 2018. The house was large and sort of cold, but I chalked that up to no one living in it for the past 6 years. But the home itself was comfortable, lots of natural light, and tons of space. So we made the move and got settled into our new temporary location. Overall, the house itself was quiet. Upstairs is where all the bedrooms were located. It had previously been renovated by the non-profit to accommodate the multiple boys that would have resided there as part of the group home. The rooms were all mismatched shapes and sizes, maximising the space. My boys each picked out a room that they wanted, and my husband and I settled into the master suite. As the days passed, we created our new norm. The boys walked to the bus stop to catch the bus to school, and both my husband and I would work in town, so our commutes were actually very short. We were your typical busy family. The days taken up by work and school, and the evenings filled with sports practices and Cub Scout meetings, etc. My ever-involved husband wore many hats, both as a coach and cub master of our local troop. This left me home alone most nights to cook dinner, clean, and do whatever other nightly chores were needed. When chores were done, I would settle into a comfortable chair in the living room or on the couch with our family dog and watch some TV. I remember at first, I would get this very uneasy feeling, like someone was stood behind me in another room. The way the house was laid out was an open flow plan, with the kitchen flowing into the dining room, which itself flowed into the living room. I remember it distinctly felt like someone was stood in the kitchen on the other end of the house. Many times I'd look over my shoulder to see if the boys had returned early from the night's events. And nope, nothing. No one was ever there. The lights were on and I could see clearly that no one was in the kitchen. I'd shrug it off, chalking it up to a new house and new noises. But it started happening more and more. That feeling. On many occasions, my small dog would be on my lap, and he would sense something too, and then stare towards the kitchen, seemingly at nothing. One night, I heard a sound coming from the staircase, which fed into the kitchen, and turned to see the outline of a shadowy head. It seemed to be peeking around the corner of the landing. I rubbed my eyes and it was gone. But it left me second-guessing myself and trying to rationalise what it could have been. The lights from a passing car out front, a reflection from the TV in the other room. I wasn't sure. I told my husband about it when he got home that night, and ever the skeptic, he shrugged it off and suggested it was just my overactive imagination. But from that point on, my experiences increased. let's have a quick break to ask you a personal question. Are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? If you're a woman, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living rent-free in our environment right now. Our food, our water, the air we breathe, the clothes we wear, our skincare. You would not believe the amount of things that can mess with our hormones. Even nature likes to put us through hormonal changes, premenopause, menopause, and while it's a natural process, it doesn't mean you're meant to suffer through it. And the good news is, you don't have to suffer through it anymore because we now have Hormone Harmony, a formula made with only herbal ingredients that are shown to reduce hormonal symptoms in women of all ages. Happy Mammoth, the company that created Hormone Harmony, is dedicated to making women's lives easier. And that means using only science-backed ingredients that have been proven to work for women. They make no compromise when it comes to quality, and it shows. Hormone Harmony is not just a hormone-supporting supplement, it's become a phenomenon. Women cannot stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony sells every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit? Feeling like myself again. That's what women mention over and over in their over 30,000 plus reviews for Hormone Harmony. For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code DARKParanormal at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use the code DARKParanormal for 15% off today. When I would walk to the top of the staircase, I would get an incredibly uncomfortable feeling from the end of the hallway. I felt like someone or something was watching me from the darkness of the furthest bedroom. I would hurry to my room in the opposite direction and silently tease myself for getting so scared. Most nights, after tucking the boys into bed, I would retreat to my room and watch TV while settling for the night. Once my eyes were on the brink of sleep, I would turn off the TV and doze off. My husband was a night owl and would watch TV from his lazy boy in the living room late on into the night. One night, whilst drifting off to sleep, my bed began to softly shake. It was the most bizarre, subtle feeling I have ever experienced. I'd liken it to the feeling of sitting in a running vehicle. This shaking would last about 10 to 15 minutes and then stop. It started happening once a week, then twice. Finally, it was every night. It only happened when I was in bed alone, and only in that space between awake and transitioning to sleep. I thought I was going mad. Was there something physically wrong with me? Was I imagining it? Why was this happening? It wouldn't happen if I stayed anywhere else, in a hotel, a friend's guest room, only this rental house. It got to the point where I was having anxiety attacks just about going to bed. When the shaking would start, I would have to shout out, "Stop!" and it would. This continued nightly for months. I shared my experiences with my friends. Some thought I was being dramatic, but most, thankfully, believed me. One night, whilst the shaking was occurring, I was sleeping on my side, and something came up to my ear and shh, loudly. I sprang out of bed and flew downstairs to tell my husband what had happened. He came up to bed with me, and the rest of the evening was quiet. I began staying up later and later, avoiding sleep, until my husband would join me in bed. I felt myself falling deeper and deeper into an anxiety-ridden life, all surrounding sleeping. One night, my eldest was sleeping over at a friend's house, so my little one asked if he could sleep with my husband and I, as he was scared. I agreed happily, but slightly for selfish reasons. I was going to have someone in the bed with me to fall asleep with together. Perfect. And it worked. The room and bed were silent and still as we both drifted off to sleep. Somewhere in the middle of the night, I was awoken by the sounds of a child crying. The sound emanated down the hall from the other end of the house. It sounded like a child who'd awoken from a nightmare. I lay there for a moment to to confirm I heard correctly. Yes, there it was again, the soft sobbing. Getting ready to get out of bed and go and check on my kids, the realization hit me. I had one child home, and he was sleeping silently next to me. And that is when panic sunk in. I strained my ears to hear the sobbing again. Nothing, not a sound. All the activity had me questioning my own sanity. I learned to live with it for a while. The price of building materials had skyrocketed, which delayed the build of our beautiful new home, meaning we were stuck here for a good while. During our time at this home, we experienced the worst luck of our lives. Our dog was hit by a car in front of our very home. My husband's normally successful business began struggling financially. It felt like we were on a runaway train towards disaster. I just couldn't take it any longer. I made an appointment with my primary physician and I was placed on medication to help with my anxiety. We lived in that home with all of those occurrences for 2 full years. When COVID hit, the non-profit made the decision to sell the home and we had to move out. We moved into my parents' small home to really focus on rebuilding our home. The home was sold to another local family that we were acquainted with. The wife expressed that this was her dream home, and her family was very excited about the move. Feeling beaten up about our time at the home, we moved out and we never looked back. The new family moved in, and the dad, a construction worker, went about renovating that home. They completely gutted the bottom floor, knocked through walls, and updated the space. It was beautiful when they were finished. But there was still one thing that was eating away at me. One thing I was dying to ask, but didn't know how to approach the very topic. Were they having experiences? I needed to know. Mostly because I needed the confirmation I wasn't crazy. I didn't make anything up. Well, on one summer evening, about 6 months after they moved in, I got that opportunity. It was the wife's 40th birthday, and they were having a big birthday party at the home. All of the neighbours were invited. I was obviously apprehensive about returning to the home, having not stepped back into that space in almost 8 months. When we arrived at the party, the house was lit up with outdoor party lights, and the inside glowed with beautiful lighting and laughter. I stayed on the deck. I couldn't physically bring myself to step inside. While speaking with the birthday girl outside, I finally mustered up the courage to ask her, "So, how's the house? Anything unexpected?" She stopped and looked at me. Her mouth dropped slightly, and in a hushed tone, she said, "Yes." I smiled and nodded knowingly. I said, "Me too." She then went into detail that her girls hear footsteps and scratching on the walls at night. They must keep many lights on overnight so the darkness could never claim the space. She has experienced the bed shaking and mystery footsteps as well. Interestingly, she explained that her husband hadn't experienced any of the activity, but all of her girls and her had. A wave of relief and redemption swept through my body. Thank God it wasn't just me. I left that night with a weight that had been lifted that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. That family lived in that home for less than a year. The husband and wife began fighting constantly. The husband took up heavy drinking. The wife eventually moved out, taking the girls with her. I'm told they went to live with family out of town, and eventually heard they divorced within a year, and the house was placed on the market yet again. It sat there for almost 8 months. It's recently sold again. A new family has moved in and is getting settled in. We're now living in our own home on the property adjacent to that rental. The new neighbours came over and introduced themselves to us. So, now I wait, wondering what types of experiences they may be having. Waiting to have that future conversation whenever the next opportunity presents itself. Sincerely, Anonymous. Or I presume Anonymous, and if you are out there and this is your experience, do let me know. But thank you for being our very first and truly well-described Dark Minisode of Season 19. And as ever, if you are out there yourself and you have your own mini experience that you would like to share with the show, the email, as always, is contact@thedarkparanormal.com. And until next time, stay safe and take care.